They were glad it was me and not them.
Yeah.
And they were glad they didn't do it.
Exactly.
Yep.
At this time, I'd like to call to order the August 18 meeting of the Geneva Area City Board of Education. Roll call, Mr. Lillie?
Mr. Arndt? Mr. Arndt?
Present.
Mr. Dana?
Here.
Ms. Fisher?
Here.
Mrs. Metzler?
Here.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Present.
Are we in compliance?
Yes, we are.
We'll stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there any correspondence?
Yes, so I received a handful of emails from various stakeholders, and while people certainly had different feelings when it came to the topic of masks or not to mask, the common thread in those correspondences certainly was that people want kids back in school 5 days a week. I did have one who posed some questions in which I responded to that individual email as well.
Kevin, is there any?
None.
Okay, agenda modification.
Yes. So there are a number of modifications. There is now an addition between letters F and letter G. There is an addition. That addition is the discussion on the safe return to school plan. There's also an addition to 10C, change of contract. There is an addition to 10D2, special needs assistant, and a change in days to the first position listed due to it being a preschool position. There is a separate 10D4. Also, in addition to 10D4, a substitute educational assistant, an addition to 10D5, a substitute secretary, an old 10D5 and 6 is now 10D6 and 7, and lastly, there is a new 10D8 and 9.
Okay. We are going to do something a little bit different tonight. And first of all, I would like to thank everybody for coming in. This is really something new and different, talking to a house of people. And if I didn't know better, I would say that you are all here to welcome our new superintendent, Dr. Terri Hrina-Treharn. And, but we know otherwise, but we wish you good luck and welcome for your first day.
Thank you.
In front of the public. Now, where we are going to move differently today. Usually we have at this point a hearing of the public where anybody that has something that they want to bring forward or questions or so forth would speak at this point. However, because of the Safe Return to School plan, which nobody has really heard, and I have a feeling a couple of you may want to speak to, what we're going to do is discuss the Safe Return to School plan at this point. And we will read relevant parts of it. We will have the board discussion of it. And then after that, there will be the hearing of the public. So if after you hear the plan and you still have questions or comments that you want to make, you will be able to make them at that time. Since there are so many people here, what we are doing is we pulled our policy, and the policy says you get 5 minutes. Start by stating your name and your address, and then deliver your comments. And there's a limit of 30 minutes. So if you can say what you want to say in 3 minutes, then we'll get more people able to talk. There will be a timekeeper that warns you when your 5 minutes is about to end. And we will definitely cut it off after a half an hour because we do want to be out of here sometime tonight. At a different, after the board meeting conducts their business, there will be a second hearing of the public. So if you don't get a chance to speak the first time, there will be a second one where you can speak. And just as a warning, and I know nobody needs to be warned that this is a public meeting and certain language is not permitted. And we do have a switch that can turn off the microphone if things get a little out of hand. So, of course, we know that's not going to be needed tonight. So, discussion of the Safe Return to School plan.
So, of course, I wanted to begin by saying that obviously this was a very challenging decision. I consulted with numerous individuals and different stakeholders across different groups. The goal definitely is to keep students in school in person 5 days a week. We know that's what's best for kids. We know the state is certainly pushing that. We want that for our students because we feel, excuse me, we feel that's where they learn best is in person with their teachers in school. To do this, we have to look at three things as in reading all the guidance seemed to be a common theme, and that was vaccinations, face masks or coverings, and other layers of protection. So taking those into account, as Ms. Fisher said, I'm not going to read through the entire plan. It will be posted on our website tomorrow, but I'm going to read the parts that I'm sure all of you are here to hear. So, as with all of our plans, this plan could change based on recommendations and guidelines we receive and the impact the coronavirus or other variants are having on our district. As we have stated since the beginning, our concern is not only the safety of our students and staff, but our Geneva community as well. In regards to face masks and coverings, Geneva schools will start the year aligning their recommendations to those from the Ohio Department of Health and the Ohio Department of Education. Therefore, it is strongly recommended that students wear masks layered with other prevention strategies. We will fully support students and staff who wish to wear face masks or shields during the school day, and we will certainly be respectful of each individual's choices. Please know we will continue to monitor cases and consider new information. Should we see an increase in numbers and/or learn new information, we may need to move to mandating masks for all students. In regards to school transportation, the CDC continues to require that masks be worn on all public transportation, including school buses, regardless of vaccination status. For us, this will also include any of our activity vans that athletic or other groups are taking to events. On the topic of physical distancing, we will follow the distancing guidelines for schools, which the target is 3 feet or more. Of course, we will continue proper hand washing, continue to clean our buildings regularly. Classrooms, school vehicles, and bathrooms will be sanitized and cleaned numerous times throughout the day. We are also adding an additional 17 HEPA filters with UV lamps across the buildings. That was based on administration input on how many more they thought they would need in their buildings. In regards to contact tracing, we will continue to work with the Ashtabula County Health Department to investigate COVID cases, to determine close contacts, and determine if a quarantine period is necessary. These decisions will align with the Ohio Department of Health and the K-12 classroom exposure quarantine chart, which links to both of those will be in the plan that's posted on the website tomorrow. While the decision to vaccinate is personal and voluntary, our goal is to at least provide opportunities to make the vaccine accessible to people ages 12 and up. Therefore, we will be providing 4 vaccination clinics prior to the start of the school year. Hopefully you saw those posted. If not, we'll be posting them again or doing another all-call. They are aligned with our Chromebook pickup that I'll be talking about a little bit later. But basically, they will happen on August 23rd, 24th, and 25th at 4 different times. We were hoping to have them happen simultaneously at both the middle and the high school. I recently found out that the health department is not able to staff all of them, so I'll be sending out an update on that, but it looks like they will be at the middle school on the 23rd and the 24th, and I'll provide those times here in a later item. And on the 25th, they'll be at the high school for both time slots.
Okay, board discussion.
So I'll have a few questions here. So, and Dr. Terri, welcome. There's no, you talk about entering the, out of the fire into the frying pan here, especially on your first meeting, but welcome. And I saw your plan, and very well written, and I think very well thought out, but I do have questions because I want to make sure that we're doing the right thing under the circumstances. So you mentioned about the CDC guidelines that are requesting masks on public transportation, including our buses. Is there any CDC guidelines here with respect to mask wearing, just period, like in the schools?
Requirements, no. They have recommendations, yes, but not requirements.
Okay. So the recommendations from the CDC is that students and faculty, staff should be masked in school.
Correct.
Okay. The governor, I watched with bated breath the governor's talk yesterday at 4:30, waiting for guidance here on behalf of him and the Ohio Department of Health. To say that I was disappointed would be an understatement. So he, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's my understanding that he's saying, hey, it's beyond us to be able to do anything here from the state level, but he strongly suggests we all get vaccinated and we wear masks. That was my take of what I heard the governor state.
I believe that to be true. At that time, as you may know, I was dealing with another situation.
I understand,
So I
yeah.
caught bits and pieces of that, but that is my understanding from what I've heard post his speech, yes.
I appreciate that. And that's what I'm saying. I was like a little disappointed. I mean, I would have liked some guidance, of saying, hey, I'm putting my foot down as we did last year, of saying you have to wear masks. And instead he's saying it's clearly the best decision to have a 5-member school board make this determination. Clearly, those are the ones that should make that. I want to know what our local health department is saying. What are they recommending?
They were aligned with the CDC, I believe, and pushing for schools to both mandate vaccinations and masks. In consulting with other districts in the county. From my last conversation with them, now I'm not going to name specific districts because I don't know if they've released their plan, but in our county, there was one district who was requiring them. There were 1, 2, 3, and this one, if you're counting up and saying, she's saying more than exist in the county, it's the ATEC and ESC is amongst the list. So 1 was requiring them at last check, 3 were recommending, not including ourselves, and 3 were optional, and 1 was undecided. In Lake County, from the information I was able to obtain, 4 were optional, 1 was mandated, and 2 had not decided yet. And in Geauga County, from again, the ones I could obtain, 3 were optional and 2 were mandatory.
Okay. And what is the, so last year they came out with this risk level, different color codes. What is Ashtabula County at currently?
We are orange. We were yellow. We are one of the few counties holding on to orange still. I think there's one other county that's still orange in the state. I don't know what county it is, but we are currently orange.
And what does that, and refresh my recollection, what does that mean? When we're orange, what is it that means from the state level?
So yellow is considered moderate. I don't know what the numbers are that distinguish one from the other, but yellow is moderate, orange is substantial, and then if you go to red, that's high.
Okay. So what are you proposing if our level changes in the county here? Because one of the things that I saw in the plan, which kudos to you, I think, is keeping the flexibility. in mind here. So that if we were to turn red, for instance, what does that happen with respect to your recommendations? And I understand, I'm asking this,
Sure.
just so that the community understands, and I understand, where we're at here.
So certainly that will be taken in consideration. Have I decided on a specific metric that will make that determination yet of going from strongly recommending to mandated? No. I think possibly using that color system if we get to red could be one possible thing to look at. I think the cases in Geneva and Geneva schools specifically would probably be another metric to look at. Because again, ultimately, if that is what's going to keep kids in school 5 days a week, then we will go there, if need be, to keep kids in school 5 days a week.
So let's talk about that for a moment as well, because everyone who you've talked to and everyone who I've talked to, whether or not it's masks or no masks, and we're going to make people, we're going to be unpopular no matter what decision we make here. But
True.
From the comments I've received here, there was no question that people wanted our students to be in school. And that's at least what I'm finding. That's what the correspondence is that you received. I'm curious about what happens if a student tests, positive for COVID or has symptoms of COVID. My understanding is that they're out for 14 days. Is that correct?
They're in isolation for 10.
They're in,
And there was a whole flow chart of a variety of scenarios that when I said we're going to align our plan with, there is, do I have them all memorized? No, but I'm happy to provide you with a copy of it. But yes, if someone, this is the flow chart, if you've seen it posted, that I'm referencing, and these are the guidelines for quarantine and exposure. Both of these documents are the ones that will be linked and are linked to our plan that will be posted.
so for a student that does test positive for COVID, so whether or not it's 10 days or 14 days, what alternate methods of instruction will be offered here for that student? Because again, the goal is if they can't be in the classroom, what are we doing here as far as to make sure that they don't fall behind?
So when we are looking at, and this is, I guess, jumping ahead to another topic, but the state has definitely changed the concept or philosophy when it comes to remote or online school. So last year, and when the pandemic began, the end of the prior year, it was very much a fluid situation, and schools were, floating between in-person, hybrid, and remote. Again, I think I mentioned the state's philosophy is very much also they want kids in school 5 days a week. So initially, they presented to districts a blended learning declaration, and that is what was submitted for Geneva schools prior to my coming. At that point, the state's recommendation was if a district submits the blended learning declaration, that you should not also submit the online application, so to speak. So they have changed their stance on that. That application was due by August 1st. Many districts did not go that route. There are 5 requirements that go along with that, one of which you have to create a new IRN. So each building in a district has an IRN, the district has an IRN. We would be applying to create, in essence, another IRN and call it, Geneva Virtual Academy, whatever we would choose to call it. So because up until, I think a week ago, yes, up until a week ago, I was making sure I have my days correct, we nor I was aware of any families who needed that option due to a health issue or reason at home. So we did not go that route. I was informed that we have 2 people who may need to have that option available for health reasons. And so I started exploring that route. It's a 2-step process. So I submitted the application for us to start the process of getting an IRN. And there's a second step to that we will be finishing up. So the past 2 days, I have been meeting with the entire administrative team, and we have started the conversations of what that will look like. We certainly want to keep that in-house with our teachers. And so I guess the long answer to your question is, once we flesh that out, we would utilize that same system, I would surmise, for anyone who would need to quarantine or have that online option.
Okay. So, I'm the attorney in the room here. I'm not the board's attorney, so I want to make that clear. But concerns that I always have is with issues of liability. And I know you've tried to reach out to our attorneys here, but my concern here is risk of loss. I would love it if we could be in person and not wear masks. I'd like to get rid of all that. But my concern here is that if a student does get sick, and God forbid, let's say we have a student who dies. My concern here is the liability here on this district. That's my concern. So we can't be held responsible for negligent actions, but if they go above recklessness, I'm concerned. So, one of the things I had asked here is if a parent does decide a mask isn't for me, is it possible to have someone sign a release? Because I don't think the risk of loss should be upon us for making a decision if someone makes a personal choice that their child shouldn't be vaccinated or shouldn't wear a mask.
Agreed, let's do it, sign it.
Okay.
Agreed, 100%.
Okay.
Let me finish, I'll sign right now, I'll sign my kid.
Okay. So my question here is that did you ask counsel here about that? And I know they may not have gone back to you here on that, but I'm just curious here as far as potential for liability here for us.
Yes, the question was posed, and yes, I did get a response to that question. We certainly could try and ask for people to sign a release. I think legal counsel felt it might be challenging in some cases to get 100% of signatures should people not want to sign it. When we get to the public comment section, which should be coming up here after Mr. Dana's questions.
Sorry. So these were just the questions that I had here. So I'm sorry if this felt like it was a deposition here, okay?
fine.
But, I'm trying to get answers myself here from which to make, the best decision possible here. That's all I have.
I have one question. Last year, we were supposed to be being kept informed from the Ashtabula County Health Department about cases of students in our school, staff. Are they still planning to do that this year as we move forward into the school year to keep us apprised of any students that are currently in our district that are testing positive?
And that is my understanding, yes. As I know, should we find out that we have someone who tested positive, that we still need to report that to the health department, I would hope that reciprocation and communication is there, yes.
Okay. And I think that's important information to have if we need to reassess what we're doing with masks. So, I think that's a big piece of the puzzle in addition to the color of our county and other information as well.
Sure. I will say in talking with them and trying to respond to an email that I think I kind of mentioned earlier, apparently I was told, it was communicated to me, that they do not get the number of school-age children who are hospitalized or potentially in ICU, because that was a question I received, how many school-age children there were currently who had tested positive, how many were hospitalized, how many were in the ICU, and were there any deaths. So they were able to give me the number currently of how many school-age children had tested positive and how many deaths there were, which thankfully were 0 deaths. There were 13 school-age children that they had reported to me as of, I believe he sent the email on Friday, in the entire county.
Thank you.
During what time frame for those 13? Are we talking going back to last year, school year? Or,
No,
oh,
his verbiage was currently.
currently.
Do you have anything?
Go ahead.
You said there were 0 deaths recorded, but there were some hospitalized.
He said that the state did not provide him with the number of school-age children who were in hospitalization or ICUs, that they did provide him with the number of current school-age children, positive cases, which was 13, and 0 deaths.
0 deaths. Okay, I have to commend you on this plan. I like it. I appreciate your due diligence and trying to accommodate not only our children, their parents, but also our teachers who find it very hard to try to teach with the mask on. So I like the plan, and I think that you've thought out a game plan if we have to change course and go to mass. So thank you.
I know that I've received a handful of messages, probably all of us have, but it seems like the common theme in those messages is that parents want to be able to choose for their child. And as a parent, and I have a 4th grader and a 5th grader coming into GPS, I appreciate the fact because for the last 2 weeks, it's Mom, we don't have to wear masks, right? So, and that hurts if I have to tell them you have to wear it. And I know people disagree with me, I understand that, but I appreciate the fact that if we can, that we keep them optional.
Any other comments, questions?
Just one more question, and that is, absent a release from a parent, is there protection that we have from civil suit if we get this decision wrong tonight?
I did not know that answer.
Okay.
Legal counsel didn't add anything?
I think because it's so new, it hasn't happened. I don't know if that is playing into that. I think the feeling was highly unlikely. I mean, I don't want to quote someone, but, you know, if we completely were negligent with explaining my plan to him, I don't think he necessarily felt we were by far completely negligent in our plan. But again, I'm not going to speak for him or misquote him on that.
If I'm correct, a family can sue us if their child gets hit by a car from a student driver in the back parking lot. A family can sue us if their child automatically doesn't see where they're running and they're running into the brick wall on the baseball dugout out back. There's all kinds of things that can happen throughout the course of a school day that a family could sue us about. We are leaving the option up to the parent on whether the child wears a mask or not. Correct?
Rick,
In a nutshell.
At this time, yes, it is
Okay.
strongly recommended, but yes, it is up to the parent, yes.
but Rick, there is a distinction here on that. And that is when we're talking about students that are, for instance, playing sports, there's releases that are signed. So the question here is about who has the risk of loss. So one of the things I'm just going to say from which to consider here, okay? If someone signs a release, if a parent makes a choice and they say, I don't want my child to be masked, and their child gets sick, and we have no liability from that, I'm okay with that. But what my concern here, though, is that we shouldn't put our district at the risk of loss of a suit if we don't have that release. So that's my point, and I think that's the distinction, though, here from the example that you gave.
But we don't know that we can't get that release. We may not be able to get it for 100%, but if the attorney says we can try to get the release, then we get the release.
Which I would be fine, yeah. And it seems like from the, at least from the people who have talked at this point, even though it wasn't public comment section, but we'll hear this, it seems like that's something they may be agreeable from which to do.
Well, we sign a release for a child to be on social media. If we want their picture on social media when the principals take their picture, we sign a release for that. Why wouldn't we, if we choose not to have them wear a mask for 6.5 hours a day, why wouldn't we sign a release for that? I think we would.
Okay.
Is that something that you would like me to further inquire with legal counsel for them to draft a release?
Yes. I mean, I think that seems to be, from what I'm hearing from the board members, I mean, I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I think that's something that should be discussed. My concern is the risk of loss. Who pays that? Because I don't think if somebody, if something does go wrong here from this decision, I don't think that, the taxpayers should have to pay, for, perhaps a mistake that, we make here tonight. So if we can mitigate that, then we should.
Why are you doing it to come to school?
Okay, if we have no more, do we have any more
Well,
comments?
I just had a comment. Nobody is allowed to sign a release of liability when they get the vaccine, but you want them to sign a release of liability to come to school? It makes no sense.
I have no further questions, if anyone else.
Anyone else have any more questions?
No. Thank
No.
you.
Okay, we will start with the hearing of the public. If you want to speak, you can form a line behind the microphone there. And as I stated, start by giving your name and your address. And you will have 5 minutes.
My name is Rebecca Stone. I live at 360 South Ridge Road, East Geneva, Ohio. And I just have a quick question. You guys talk a lot about risk of loss. My daughter gets headaches from these masks 6.5 hours a day. So who takes care of that medical bill? Do we have to sign a waiver for that too? I'll gladly sign it so my daughter doesn't have to wear that mask. Show me the pen and paper. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Hansen. I live at 103 Pepperidge Drive. I am up here.
I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm too short. How do you lower
Yeah.
this?
Pull it down.
There we go. Kirsten Hansen, 103 Pepperidge Drive. So I'm standing here before you today not to spew any stats or force my political views on you, but as a mom that wants nothing but the best for her kids, and you guys have done that so far with this optional plan, and I thank you so much, because all we want is what's best for them. We don't see what you see, Mr. Richard Dana. We see what is around us. We see these dirty, snotty masks that come home, and we do our best, trust me, to wash them and to keep them nice so they can go to school. But you know how many times my son lost the wad of masks that I sent home or sent to school with him? He chewed through them. I mean, the kids they do kid things. These kids are wiping them on the floor, they're cleaning the underside of their desks, and then they're putting it back on their face because those teachers are so exhausted after taking care of this crap all day. And you expect them to be okay wearing this? I mean, you're gonna hear a lot of stats coming up about this, but as a parent, you have to think about these things and what is best for your kid. And thank you so much for taking that into consideration. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Currens. I live at 1800 Lefevre Road in Geneva. My husband and I have 2 school-age children. I want to give a warm welcome to Dr. Terri Treharn. It's been said, speak the truth even if your voice shakes, and here's the truth. The choice should always remain with the parent of a child when making health decisions. The FDA regulates face masks as a medical device when they are used for medical purposes. According to the FDA, medical purposes include using face masks to stop the spread of disease. On April 18, 2020, the FDA issued an emergency use authorization for the use of face masks by the general public. In that EUA, it states that it is pursuant to the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, which states, to ensure that individuals to whom the product is administered are informed of the significant known and potential benefits and risks of such use, and of the extent to which such benefits and risks are unknown, and of the option to accept or refuse the administration of the product. In this case, the product is the mask. By giving parents the right to make an informed choice for their children, you are actually in compliance with federal law. I am thankful for the opportunity to stand here today. Thank you for your time, and I wish you all a wonderful school year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amy Wood. I live at 6624 West Maple. I'm not here to talk politics either. I want what's best for my children. I want what's best for all of my friends' children, but I have three. I have one kid who was the best, most outgoing kid who would talk to anybody, be around anybody, and for 3 days, he's been up having panic attacks. Why do I have to go to school? Why do I have to wear a mask? I don't want to wear a mask. Last year, when they came home, I was going to bring it, but my husband accidentally threw it away. They had a window, a tiny little window that we were asking these children to look at their friends out of, to try to talk through a mask where all you could see was their eyes and see their friends. They couldn't sit at lunch with their friends. They've been doing that all summer, but now we're gonna change that on them. We're gonna say, okay, you went to Waldemere, everyone has been everywhere with everyone, but now you're gonna go sit in a mask, not talk to these kids that you've talked to. And last year, I got a call probably twice a week for 2 of my children. They don't feel good, come get them, from the school nurse. So I did. Every time she called me, I left work and I came to get them. As soon as they would get home and take that mask off, 20 minutes later, they were playing like nothing ever happened. Being at home on the virtual learning is crap. I'm sorry, but it is. They sit there, they talk to their brothers, their sisters, they want to play on tablets. No matter what we did as parents, pay attention, listen, learn. That's not what they wanted to be doing. They wanted to be in school. And respectfully, if you guys have children, actually have children in school, you would see that this is hurting them more than helping them. Because it makes me want to cry right now thinking about my child who does not want to go to school and is in 4th grade. And I would rather him learn and want to be in school than be afraid of people, be afraid of his teachers, be afraid of the kids sitting next to him because he might sneeze on him. It's time that we open our eyes. I'm sorry that you came to a district and this is where you're at right now, but I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you. No matter our differences, no matter any of that, but I will stick up for my kids for what's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angela Orr. I live at 4530 Northridge Road East. Welcome, new superintendent. Thank you, Mr. Dana, for your comments. I'm going to be with the odd one out here today, but the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics have both strongly recommended that masks be recommended for all students, kindergarten to grade 12. The Ashtabula County Health Department has strongly encouraged districts to mandate masks for their students. The Ohio Department of Education has in their rules that they will provide Ohio students with a safe learning environment. Failing to mandate masks for our students is creating an unsafe learning environment. We need to follow what we know about science and how masks keep our students safe. And the studies have also shown that wearing masks does not reduce oxygen or cause headaches in most cases. And for those cases, there are medical exemptions. We have options for the students that really struggle with masks, but we know that masks keep our students safe. What everybody did over the summer is their own business. And unfortunately, we do know that most of them have been everywhere doing everything. Ashtabula County numbers have only gotten higher since the CDC and the AAP made those recommendations, and our health department is urging us to do the right thing and keep our children safe. So I hope that our school board will do what needs to be done, what we know is the right thing to keep our students safe. Thank you.
I'm Gail Groh. I live at 360 East Main Street. I had a couple of questions. Do we know how many teachers at the elementary level have been vaccinated? Are there any that have not been? It seems to me that there's a great risk for those teachers among those unvaccinated student populations, and that we are putting the elementary teachers who have not been vaccinated at risk. Something that we might perhaps look at. I wear a mask. I have been vaccinated, but I'm okay wearing a mask to protect those of you who have not been. I don't think it's too much to ask. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Val Bollinger, 1703307 in Austinburg. I have a question. You mentioned a loss of life, civil suit, and questions pertaining to the kids if we don't make them wear masks. My question, I guess, for you, Mr. Dana, is why didn't you bring up the risk for loss of life and the risk for civil suit if we do make our kids wear masks? I mean, you have kids that have asthma that can barely breathe in the humid temperatures that are going to have to wear these masks. So why is your concern about those who are about making them wear a mask and your liability with that? But you didn't bring up the concern for your liability, the school's liability, with making them wear a mask. Can you answer that question?
I don't want to take away from the public portion, but
No,
when we go
please,
back,
go ahead.
we're going to be voting here on this. I'll address that when we get to the point of voting on it.
Okay, so
I don't
there's
wanna
an
take up-
agenda there, I assume,
Yeah.
that it's going towards his feeling and making everybody wear a mask. I understand that if there's an option for parents to allow their kids to wear a mask or not wear a mask, you're going to see a lot of people not having their children wear masks. That's probably going to be 60%, if not more, of the kids, because in the hospitals you're having, you're in the hospital, maybe you can validate this. You see a lot of nurses not even justifying the fact of wearing masks and getting vaccinated. So I think you're going to see it even more in the public, and especially in the school, if it's an option. But if there's an exemption, like she said, for headaches, these exemptions are going to be everywhere. You're going to have papers flying everywhere saying their kids are exempt from wearing these masks. So you're going to get yourself into this huge mess of exemptions for headaches and asthma and all of these things that parents will do. We will go get those exemptions because we're not going to just allow anybody to make our kids. If there's an exemption, we'll use it. We're going to use it. So I just ask that you guys think about it and let us make our own decisions for our own children. We've been doing it all summer. Just let us. That's all.
Thank you.
My name's Eric Butcher, 2146 Walter, Maine. So I wore a mask every day last summer, and I still got COVID. So maybe you need to study your science a little bit better. I don't know. Mask aside, I have 3 kids that have grown up in this system. One's going into 11th, one's going into 10th, one's going into 5th. We did remote learning last year. I have 2 children that have enthesitis-related arthritis. So if they come to school and they get sick, their immune system's already weakened. We're picking up Chromebooks here in the next few weeks, but yet you've thrown out remote learning. Like, I don't understand. What are the Chromebooks for anyway? I don't get it. My kids, I don't care if they wear a mask or not, but all 3 of them have to stay home. They can't come back to school. So either we do remote learning, or I'm going to have to put them in a K through 9 online school. I don't know what else to do. That's it.
Good evening. Jeff Griffiths, 130 Pepperidge Drive in Geneva. Welcome to the new superintendent. I mean, it seems like, a lot of the data around safety for folks with COVID center around some of the things that were mentioned, right? Testing and tracing, which I know last year we had a hard time from a capacity perspective, it seemed like, with the health department from a tracing. It seemed like that burden fell on our schools often, and I applaud them for those efforts. Ventilation, which I know that the school district has invested a ton in, which I appreciate that. Vaccination and masks. And again, I appreciate the effort to vaccinate the community, and I applaud that. My older kids are vaccinated. My 6-year-old is not, because she cannot be. It seems like we're 3 to 4 months away for that under 12 group to have the choice to be vaccinated. And so for me, I think about that elementary age group with the Delta variant being, I think, something like 98% of the cases right now, hospitalizations being with really 98, 99% of those unvaccinated, and an increase in children in ICU beds and getting sick. I struggle with why not implement at least that mask mandate in the elementary schools or for under 12 until we know we can get that vaccine offered for the community to have that choice to vaccinate or not. We don't know the risks of long COVID. We don't know the impact of cases when kids are getting it. There are some children in our district that still have lung problems, that have been impacted with their hearts, heart valves and other issues. And so we don't know the science behind all that or the severity. And I'm not saying you make all the decisions on the what ifs, but I think we have to consider some of those. At what cost of the long-term health of our children are we willing to make those sacrifices? And that sense and that duty to protect kids as well. The second leading cause of death in our county last year was COVID. It wasn't mask wearing, it was COVID. And although that was a much elderly population, it is the sense of loss has been enormous. There has also been a huge impact, obviously, on the quality of education. And I agree, keeping kids in 5 days a week is a priority. Definitely, I think we all do. And so I would just, again, urge you to think through that under 12 group and how we're evaluating their safety, because they don't have a choice to be vaccinated right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ann Craig, 479 North Avenue. I don't have children in school, but I have grandchildren. And I know my 9-year-old granddaughter, she had 3 brain surgeries. She has some other issues, and she tells me she hates wearing the mask. Said the teacher, when she's sitting, will let her take it down. And I'm saying these are not your children. You should not get to make that decision. It should be the parents. These kids can get all kinds of diseases, germs, things. Some things that are so simple they can die from. Let the parents make the decision.
My name's Richard Magda, and I live in 1731 Dadyville Road. Now, what I've heard from you is about the CDC, the health department, all these recognitions, but yet people are getting it no matter if they have shots or not, am I right or wrong, with masks on. So how do you keep a liability from that? If I sign off on something and my other kid gets it with a mask on and has the shots. I mean, where do we believe what we're hearing? Really? You got nothing from DeWine, right?
Say that again, sir.
DeWine, Governor DeWine didn't say nothing about what you should do for masks.
Right.
Okay, then.
He said local, it's now a local decision.
So that's all we hear is the news. How this variance and everything else coming up now, it's going to cause the same thing, a booster shot. and all the other things? Are we just afraid to destroy ourselves in a rest home and hope we die from it? If we're going to die from that variance, we're going to die from it. A lot of people, 2 years ago, you couldn't even get into Geneva Hospital during the flu. And people were dying, as much as now maybe. And nobody said nothing about it. And that's all I got to say, really. Think about this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else at this time who would like to make a statement? Okay, we will go on with the meeting and come to a vote on this issue in a bit. Approval of minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Treasurer's financial report.
Moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Approval of invoices?
Move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Informational items?
I just want to bring up 2 items to update the board on. First, our school district income tax collections. We received a distribution at the end of July. Again, that distribution was less than what we had anticipated. And if you remember, we're forecasting based on the timeline that the Ohio Department of Taxation provided and looking at that middle range. So we received 12.7% less than we had projected on this. However, if we look at it compared to the same time last year, we've received 27% more than that quarter. And if we look at the last 4 distributions compared to the previous 4 distributions, that's up 28.44%. So it is growing as it was anticipated. The other thing I wanted to update you on are the real estate tax collections. So, you know, there was some concern due to COVID that those might drop. And as we pointed out last year, they grew during 2020. Again, it has risen in 2021. We'll receive our second half settlement August 20th, so that settlement sheet was sent out today. And when I plug that all in, our first half subtotal was 2.3% higher than last year, same time. And the second half was 4% higher than last year's second half collections. Total for the year, 2021 compared to 2020, is 3% higher. So we haven't seen any decrease in those collections. So.
Okay. Legislative report?
Thank you. Governor DeWine signed House Bill 110 into law on June 30th. The bill makes operating appropriations for the fiscal year 22 and 23 biennium and includes the Fair School Funding Plan, House Bill 1, as the basis for school funding. The Fair School Funding Plan is implemented as reflected in the House version with some modifications. Those include removing the 6-year phase-in and only having it apply to fiscal year 22 and 23, eliminating the Oversight Commission, eliminating the cost studies for categorical components of the formula, requiring the portion of student wellness and success funds that are incorporated into the formula to be subject to certain reporting and expenditure requirements. It maintains the increased Ed Choice voucher payment amounts and expanded eligibility provisions. It maintains the bill's temporary prohibition on creating new academic distress commissions. It reinstates funding for the Residential Broadband Expansion Grant Program at $230 million in fiscal year 22 and $20 million in fiscal year 23. And it eliminates the extension of the virtual board meeting option from the House version, which means we would be unable to hold any more virtual board meetings, and that expired on June 30th. The Senate's budget provisions regarding the school choice options were also included in the final budget, and those changes include increasing the Ed Choice, Cleveland, Autism, and John Peterson voucher amounts, expanding the eligibility criteria for Ed Choice and Cleveland vouchers, creating the After-School Child Enrichment Educational Savings Account program, creating income tax deductions for tuition paid to a private school and education expenses for homeschooled students. Additional education provisions include $50 million in school bus funding for the fiscal year 22, authorizing a school district to operate a building using an online learning model, which we heard a little bit about earlier, subject to certain requirements, and increasing the minimum payment in lieu of transportation amount to be no less than $539. The governor also signed into law House Bill 82. Overall, House Bill 82, which was amended to include modified provisions from the Senate Bill 145, establishes a revised report card for Ohio's public school districts and schools that includes a new version of the overall rating and refines the existing components in their calculation methodologies. The bill also creates an opt-out for 11th grade students from the state requirement to take the ACT or the SAT. The bill will make the following changes to the report card. It replaces the A through F system with a 5-star system that includes descriptors. It maintains the overall summative rating, but generally delays the implementation for the 21-22 school year to only be calculated for compliance with federal and state laws. It maintains the 6 components of gap closing, achievement, progress, graduation, early literacy, and the college, career, workforce, and military readiness. It delays the grading of that college, career, workforce, military readiness component until the 24-25 school year. It revises how each of those components are rated individually and how the component is calculated in the overall rating. So changes are coming for that. Governor DeWine also signed House Bill 252. The bill enters Ohio into the Audiology and Speech-Language Pathology Interstate Compact that increases public access to audiology and speech-language pathology services by mutually recognizing other member states' licenses. The legislation would allow for telehealth services to be allowable if allowable under other states' licenses as well. And he also signed House Bill 244, which is not effective until October 13th of this year. It originally dealt with the electronic enrollment and academic participation by military children, but the bill changed. So now this bill that was signed into law and is effective in October will prohibit public schools from mandating a vaccine that is not fully approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, prohibit public schools from discriminating against an individual who has not received such vaccine, including by requiring the individual to engage in or refrain from engaging in activities or precautions that differ from the activities or precautions of an individual who has received the vaccine. It modifies the quarantine procedures for individuals who come from a high-risk country as defined by the CDC, and it requires the K-12 schools to allow military children who are relocating but not yet residents of the district to enroll electronically and participate in technology-based educational opportunities. So, how it originally started out, it's still in there, but they added a whole bunch of language about the vaccine as part of that House bill as well. And finally, recently introduced legislation includes House Bill 350 to prohibit school districts and state agencies, among others, from requiring the COVID vaccine, prohibit school districts and state agencies from requiring proof of the vaccine, prohibits discrimination against individuals based on their vaccine status, prohibit an employer other than a healthcare entity or practitioner from taking an adverse employment action against an individual based on their vaccination status. House Bill 368 is to permit school districts and schools to establish their own policies for weighted grade averages of courses completed through the College Credit Plus program, or CCP as we call it. House Bill 370 and House Bill 373 both center around seizures. 370 is to enact the Seizure Safe Schools Act to require public and chartered non-public schools to create a seizure action plan for each student with a seizure disorder, notify all school employees with direct supervision of the student, to require all the employees to annually complete a 1-hour training on seizure disorders, and require each student to receive age-appropriate instruction on seizure disorders. And 373 is similar in that it has all of those requirements except that they require school employees to complete epilepsy and seizure disorder training every 2 years, and that would also be called Sarah's Law. And finally, Senate Bill 209 to prohibit after the 2021 school year the State Board of Education, the ODE, and school boards from mandating masks to any person who is on the school's premises, including those attending in-person instruction, school-sponsored athletics, and school-sponsored extracurricular activities.
Let me ask you about that last law. That was passed, or is that been proposed?
The last thing that I mentioned, Senate Bill 209, was
209, yeah.
proposal.
Proposal.
Yes,
And
introduced.
that would be, if that was passed, that would be effective when? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. The end of this year or school year?
After the 2021 school year.
After the 2021 school year.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the ATEC report. It was a very short report, but it was a long meeting. Opening day for ATEC is going to be this coming Monday. The meeting was long because we were discussing opening procedures, masking, vaccines, and everything. So this is a county-wide discussion that's being held everywhere. And we came up with pretty much the same highly recommend masking, and sometimes it depends on the type of activity that the students are dealing in as to what the mask situation can be. So that's it for the ATEC report. Would you like to give the update on the opening day activities?
Sure. First, I wanted to thank everyone for such a warm welcome. I cannot say how appreciative I have been of that, so thank you. It has been wonderful getting to know my new administrative team, and I'm thrilled to be working with them. Your students are very blessed to have such great administrators and teachers. I'm meeting with every single employee in the district and having a meeting with them, which is helping me get to learn everyone in the district, as well as it will certainly help me and guide me in setting goals for the district based on the common themes that I'm hearing that people feel need addressed. So it's time consuming, but it is definitely time well spent. So again, thank you for the warm welcome. Some of the opening day activities, hopefully you have seen these posted or have gotten robocalls about them, but they kick off with our open houses. So Geneva Middle School, August 23rd from 6 to 7 will be the 7th and 8th grade open house. On the 24th, the middle school from 6 to 7 again will have 6th grade orientation. Geneva High School on August 24th from 10 to 11 will have their open house. On August 25th, Cork Elementary K-2 open house will be 4:30 to 5:30, while grades 3 through 5 will be 5:30 to 6:30. Following that, both on August 27th will be GPS and Austinburg's open houses. GPS will be K-2 from 4 to 5, and grades 3 through 5 from 5 to 6 p.m. And at Austinburg, pre-K through 2 will be 4:30 to 5:30, while grades 3 through 5 will be 5:30 to 6:30. So hopefully, I encourage you to attend the open houses. I mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again with the specific times, but we are having Chromebook pickups on August 23rd and 24th from 3 to 5 p.m. at both the middle and high school, and on August 25th from 9 to 11 a.m. and 6 to 8 p.m. We have coincided those with offering the opportunity for students who are eligible, staff, parents, community who want the vaccine. We will be doing that on August 23rd and 24th from 3 to 5 at the middle school, and August 25th, both time slots at the high school, 9 to 11 and 6 to 8. I do want to add that the health department is asking that if you are coming for the vaccine, that they are requiring you wear a mask to go attend that vaccine clinic and get your shot. Other opening day activities kick off on August 26th with our waiver day. All of our staff will be in attendance that day. We have a variety of trainings going on. And then August 27th, our teacher in-service day. Again, we will hear from a variety of people so that the staff can be updated. We have a lot of new staff. We'll be introducing those people. Our board president will be speaking, our treasurer will be speaking, technology, we'll hear from technology, Mr. Brigard. Our assistant superintendent will be talking about different curriculum updates and state tests, and certainly I will be speaking on some district updates as well as the district goals. So there's a lot going on in those first 2 opening days for teachers. School begins, of course, for students on August 30th for grades 1 to 12. I'm thrilled to have students coming back in the buildings. September 1st, kindergarten will begin, and then September 7th, our preschool students will come. Would you like me to do the changes as well? The second part of that, the upcoming changes in the district?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so some upcoming changes. We are going fully online this year for emergency medical forms. So I know last year we started that process. We are really targeting getting all of those filled out online to help and assist if you don't have a device or you need assistance filling those out online. We will have tables set up at open house with devices available if you just need to use a device, and or someone providing assistance if you need help navigating the platform in order to complete those. Excited to also say that we are fully one-to-one and that the devices will be assigned to all students across the district, and in grades 6 through 12, we will be sending those home with students so that they have access to those 24/7. So we are excited about that. I definitely want to thank our technology committee, which included teachers coming in during their summer break. I'm certainly appreciative and grateful of that and them giving their time. Administrators who were on the technology committee, a huge thank you to them, and a special thanks to Mr. Brigard, because he just provided so much time and effort in helping that come to fruition. So very excited about that. We do ask that parents come with the child during those Chromebook pickups to pick up the Chromebook because you will be signing them out with your child. Again, this year, all students will receive free breakfast and lunch. The U.S. Department of Agriculture will continue reimbursing schools for free meals to all students, regardless of their income. But we definitely encourage you to please still complete the online and free reduced application if you think you might qualify, because that helps our Title I funding. First day signs, if you haven't seen those posted on our website, it's something that I did in my prior district and I'm bringing here. It's kind of just a nice, fun way to show pride in the district. All the different signs are posted. It basically says, you know, my first day of first grade or my first day of senior year. So we just ask if you want to participate in that, have your child or children take a picture holding their sign and send it to me, email it to me. I'll be gathering and posting all of those on our social media platforms. Just know that sending it to me is indicating permission that I can post your child's picture. Another program that I'm bringing with me, although changing the name here, is Soaring Eagles. So it's a student and staff recognition program where each month of the school year, I'll be going into each of the buildings in the district, and either a student or staff member will be the Soaring Eagle for that month to represent that building. Along with that, they will get a prize. They will get their picture on social media as long as we have parental consent. Holding an eagle that I have to thank some high school people for creating and making. They'll get a positive phone call home from me if they are chosen. And then twice, which I guess this is news to the board, but twice throughout the school year in January and at our May board meeting, we will recognize all of our Soaring Eagles. So just a nice, again, way to recognize our staff and students. And then lastly, if you have not followed or liked us yet, we are on social media this year. So we have district Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Certainly we ask that if you are on social media that you follow and like us, because we'll be posting positive things that are happening in the district to highlight all the great things happening in Geneva.
Okay. I recommend that the board approve the Safe Return to School Plan for 2021-2022 school year.
Moved.
I'll second.
We've had our discussion. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I'll briefly say this here. So again, Dr. Terri, welcome again here. Tough decision on your first day. And I remember 6 years ago when Eric was starting his job as superintendent, and I remember telling him that the most critical decision that he would make was going to be about Spire. So Eric, is no longer with us. I mean, he's still alive. I don't want to get that impression, but he's no longer our superintendent. Of course, we welcome Dr. Terri. But he spoke with me and he said, when you said that Spire was going to be the toughest decision I was going to make, he goes, you were way off. He goes, you were way, way off. And I'm like, what were some of the hardest decisions that you had to make during your 6 years as superintendent? And he said, when we had the budget cuts that occurred from the state and we had to let staff go and we lost programs, he goes, that was a hard day. Because that was one of his hardest days that he had. COVID, having to deal with the COVID situation, he goes, not a fun situation, okay? Not a fun situation of what he had to deal with. And I thought that he may have said that that would have been the toughest decisions that he had to make because it was all throughout last year. But what he said was the hardest decision that he made was when he was in his first month on the job where there was a student who had passed away. And there were allegations on social media that it was somehow the school's fault. Tragedy of a situation occurring where one of our young people passes away. And he said that was tough. That was the single toughest decision that he had to make. And the family came out and said the school didn't have anything to do with this, that wasn't a concern, but still having to deal with that heartache and pain of dealing with that death of a child was the hardest decision that he had to make. So in making 6 years later, okay, this may be the toughest decision that you have to present here to the board. And first of all, I always want to say I thank everyone for being here. This is democracy. This is democracy. What we have here is a situation where you're allowed to come in, express your concerns, and you'll have a body here from which to make the decision. And you may not be happy with my particular vote on this topic. I think you see how this is going from what the entire board has said, and that's okay. That's okay. We're not going to agree on every single issue that comes up, and that's okay. We respect that. I respect all of you that spoke here today, one way or the other, and I hear your concerns. I really do. I hear those concerns, and that's what that's why we have these public forums. The frustration that I have here, and you've heard this here, is about I mentioned about where's the risk of loss. We could have had the governor yesterday make a statement one way or the other about whether or not we should have masks in schools or not. The governor makes that decision. We aren't here having to make that tough choice. The governor's made it. But he didn't want to do that, right? Because he did last year. But I understand. But I'm just, I understand where you're coming from here. But again, is it a 5-member school board that is the best place here from which to make that determination? So please, just, but just, I hear you, okay? But just understand what I'm trying to say here is what the governor said yesterday. The governor said it falls upon parents on the 5-member school board to make the policy. And what did he say? He strongly suggested that we require our students to wear masks. He did say that. You can pull it up on YouTube. You can follow that. He did say that. Okay. So we gave everyone here an opportunity. I know you're not going to agree with me. I'm just trying to say my piece here, okay? Just trying to say my piece here on this. Because What my point here is that these decisions can be made by other folks. We had this one gentleman, I think he left or he may be in the back here, who mentioned about how his kids are immunocompromised and they can't attend in-person school. And then there was, from what I hear from Dr. Terri here, is that the legislature made it more difficult here for us to create our own online, school here, that we're still trying to work on that. So my point here is that there's decisions that are being made at higher levels than on this board that could have addressed this, that could have addressed this situation. We talked about House Bill 209. So they're talking about, the legislature's talking about creating a law that will be effective come the end of this school year about saying you can't require someone to wear a mask. That could have been enacted at the state level already. It wasn't. Why? Why? So my point here in saying this here is that I'm glad you're all here. I'm glad that you're all participating here in our democracy. I'm hopeful that you're here at future meetings, but I hope you're also talking with our representatives, our senators, our governors, and you're expressing these same concerns because ultimately they can enact laws from which to deal with this so it doesn't fall upon us. So 209 is the new bill. So I am familiar with that law, and the governor still has the power through the Department of Health from which to make an emergency order, but it can be reviewed by the legislature thereafter. So I'm just suggesting, okay. I'm just suggesting that we can take this other levels as well. So House Bill, 209, which was mentioned here in the legislative report.
Why pass the buck and do it right here at home? Get rid of it right here.
Well,
This is where it belongs. This is where it matters.
and I agree, and as a board, we're going to be making that determination, okay? I'm just suggesting that perhaps it would be nice if it was made in a consistent basis here at the state level. Okay, I get that, okay. So final thing of what I'm going to say here, though, is that I appreciate all of you being here. I do hope you'll get vaccinated. We want to see you at future meetings. I'm just saying, because we're playing the odds here. And the reality of it here is if you are vaccinated, there's less of a chance that you're going to have. I will stop. Okay, I'm just explaining why I'm voting why I am. Thank you. Okay.
I really hope you guys will be pushing those kind of words on our children in school and suggesting that they get vaccinated at these clinics at the school, because that is my choice, not yours. And I hope that you do not push that on them in their school building.
I'm not pushing that. I am pushing here. I hope all of you get vaccinated. Okay, that's fine. And that's your choice.
Sally, we need to take charge.
Okay. I think it's time that we go our voting on this issue. Roll call.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Mr. Dana?
No.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes. Okay, I recommend that the board waive the first reading and adopt the following new revised replacement policies. Policy numbers listed.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I was just going to briefly mention that these are all technology policies and social media policies that either needed revised or are new to reflect our ability to send home devices with students.
Other discussion?
Again, thank you for, making these policy changes. I think it was necessary for us to, amend the rules to enact this now with the fact that Chromebooks were going to be going to our students based on that one-to-one match. So thank you.
Roll call.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
I recommend the board approve the enclosed bus stop locations and time schedules for the 21-22 school year.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
If a parent has a question, do they field the bus garage or do they field the board office? Where do they take a question or a concern with a bus route to? Where's the best place?
It would be the bus garage and
The
our
bus garage.
Director of Transportation.
That was a loaded question, that's why I asked that.
Thank you.
I know I have not been here long. However, I will say that we are very short on bus drivers, and I know that our bus supervisor is having to drive the bus also. So we are aware that sometimes that may be an issue that no one is at the desk, and we are hoping to get bus drivers. So if anyone has their license, would like to be hired, if you know anyone, we will gladly take bus sub-drivers. But thank you.
And is your business plan daily, are you going to require that certain divisions within our school district are required to notify you of issues weekly, bi-weekly? So let's say our bus garage gets 14 calls from a Monday to a Thursday. At what point is that bus garage or any maintenance department, any branch within our school district required to tell you of concerns? Meaning concerns within the district need to end at the school board office. They can't be squelched at an individual branch or office or department. So what is your requirement on getting information to you or mandating that you are notified of issues and corrective action taken?
So they're all sitting here, and I think they would tell you at this point, even though we've only worked together for a few short weeks, that I have clearly communicated that I want open communication both ways. I certainly respect their positions. It would be my hope that it is handled, be it at the bus garage level, the building level, whatever department it is, that it follows the proper chain of command, and that if there is an issue, let's just say it's with, a teacher, that it starts with the teacher. The parent goes to the teacher first. If it is not resolved, then they should go to the building principal next, and if it's not resolved, they should probably stop at the assistant superintendent next, and if it's not resolved, then it should land on me, but certainly I expect to be aware of those situations amongst us, would be my response.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Well, I was just going to briefly mention that this is on the agenda because it is required per Ohio Administrative Code 3301-8313.
Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
I recommend the board approve the enclosed student parent device handbook.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion?
I have a few questions. Points of clarification.
Sure.
So, we'll start at the back. On page 11, and it kind of isn't really actually addressed on page 11, but are these going to be issued each year, or is it issued once and kept for the 6-year period that Chromebooks are feasibly used?
So we have not defined the timetable, but to say that it will follow the child. So whether that's the end of life is 4 years, 6 years, whatever the end of life may be, that it stays with the same child.
Okay, so they won't be taken back at the end of the year and reissued at the beginning of the year? There's not going to be a turn-in to assess them, or?
Our tech committee has talked about that again. We've only been meeting for a couple weeks. And I don't know that we've come to a final decision on that. I would certainly defer to Mr. Brigard if he feels at the end of the year there are things that he needs to collect them back for any reason, and do upkeep or, updates, and then turn them back. I think his hope would probably be not to have to do that. But final decision has not been made on that. But it will get reissued should they have to be collected over the summer. That same device will be reissued to the same child again. It's not going to issue to you this year, him next year, so forth and so on.
Okay. And the protection plan?
Is
that
optional.
Optional, but is that an annual? Okay. All right. And then there was just the one other thing I think I saw on page 6, just a typo under the optional technology protection plan. Fourth line down, additional damages will be incurred at the current market rate. Charges, maybe? It's just a point of.
Say that again, please.
On the fourth line where it says additional damages will be incurred at the current market rate for the damaged part, additional charges?
I see where you are. Thank you.
Yep, that's all I had. Thank you very much. I don't disagree with anything in this book. I think it's very well written. I think it covers all of the bases. So thank you to you and the group and the efforts that you've put into this handbook.
So do we need a motion to move it, or to approve this policy as amended, or are we okay with that one change?
It was just the wording.
Yeah, just one.
Okay, roll call?
Well.
Or we need a motion to?
Addressed it, I would say that if Mr. Arndt and Mrs. Metzler are willing to, they moved and seconded, say that as amended.
Sure, yes.
Sure.
As amended.
Okay, roll call?
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
I recommend that the 5-year depository agreements be assigned to Andover, Huntington Bank, and U.S. Bank up till August of 2026.
Moved.
Second.
Discuss? Roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Mr. Dana?
Yes.
I recommend the approval of the enclosed resolution supporting the Ashtabula County Commissioners' establishment of the Harpersfield Township CRA number 1.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I already expressed, or made comments here at the last meeting, which are in the minutes, so I'm okay with this.
We can't hear you, Richard.
I just said I had already made, my statements here about this provision at the last meeting that were in the minutes. So, just about working on a collaborative, basis and making sure that the board is contacted ahead of time with any sort of projects that are that come out from this. So I think I expressed that in the minutes previously.
If I read this correctly, I believe that this is just cut and paste out of the Ohio Revised Code. And the very first paragraph alarms me because it says counties may designate areas in which housing facilities or structures of historical significance are located in which new construction or repair of existing facilities has been discouraged. Why would we put the word discouraged in there? We have not discouraged anything, and that's what leads me to believe that they just cut and paste on this. Second off, if I understand this piece of paper correctly, it's for tax abatement, which, yes, they have to come to us because the public schools up to a certain percent. But I did a little bit of research, and we have more to lose than any other entity who signs us. I was thinking we get about 48 cents on the dollar for property tax. Somebody else here said it may be 51 or 52% or 52 cents, whereas the county only gets 12 cents per dollar. So let's shoot lowball. We get 48 cents per dollar on property tax of a piece of property that is worth $2 out in Harpersfield. So we're going to lose 48 cents times 2. The county is going to lose 12 cents times 2. We have the biggest loss. However, the county gets a portion of the sales tax for the company that is out there. They get 2 or 3 cents on a dollar. We don't get any. I'm not opposed to this. I'm not opposed to economic development. I am opposed to getting our support for something when we have the biggest percentage of loss for the plan. They don't have to come to us up to a certain percentage. I believe it's anything over 60%, Kevin, they have to come to us?
For the CRA, it was 50%.
Okay. So I just throw those comments out there. I support doing the CRA. I don't support the verbiage saying that it's been discouraged one way or the other. When I have discouraged nothing, and I don't think anybody up here has discouraged anything. But yet they put that in a document that they want us to sign. And I have a problem with us assuming the biggest loss when there is a benefit to a company that goes in business. And our loss is much greater than the county's loss. That's all I have.
Any other comments? Roll call.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes?
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes. I recommend the board approve the attached tentative bargaining agreement with OPSI effective July 21 through June 30th of 2024. This agreement was ratified at the membership meeting on August 11, 2021.
Moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes?
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
I recommend that the board approve the enclosed memorandum of understanding between the Geneva Area City Schools Board of Education and OPSI Local 307.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I just want to note, this is to continue the additional cleaning and sanitizing needed during the pandemic. Again, it's just another added layer of protection, and it's being paid for out of the CARES Act funding.
Other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes?
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
I recommend the following personnel actions for the 21-22 contract year.
I
And
move.
it includes all of number 10.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes?
Discussion on the Safe Routes to School program.
Want me to begin? Okay. So I was approached initially by, or reached out to by a member of City Council to discuss an ODOT grant that was written through the Safe Routes to School program in order to build a school travel plan for GPS in the middle school. I was then informed that the ODOT consultants wanted to have a conference call, and I had invited at that point the administration from GPS in the middle school, since they would be involved, to be a part of that call. So we had that conference call on August 11th, which was predominantly led by Nora Anderson, who to my knowledge is a consultant from WSP, who was hired by ODOT. It appears that the goal of this is to create sidewalks to increase the number of students who can walk or bike safely to school, and it sounded like an additional component to that was possibly doing some education of the students about safety too within the schools. The MOU that I'm aware of exists between the City of Geneva and ODOT, and my understanding through some questioning that I had would be if there were change orders or material cost changes, that the school would bear the cost of those. In reading the scope of work that I was given, it seems that the schools are certainly would be an integral partner in this and would involve a variety of tasks on our end. So the timeline that was presented was to do some gathering of information during the month of September. Maybe they were going to come in or try and come in and do surveys to get the data that they needed. During October and November, it was stated that they would hold a public meeting to solicit input from the staff and community. January to March of 2022, my understanding is the actual application window. And so, you know, we had this call, got some information. I read through all the documents that I shared with the board, and I had just said that, you know, before I commit to anything on the school's behalf, I wanted to speak with the board and sort of get your input and thoughts on, you know, how you wanted to proceed. So that is my knowledge at this point.
So there is nothing that they're seeking us to sign here at this point, or this is an MOU that was signed between the City of Geneva and ODOT, or?
I'm not sure if it was signed yet. The document was shared with me, I think, just for informational purposes. The copy that I received was not a signed copy. It was the copy that, you know, is in your packet. No, I was not asked to sign anything at this point.
Okay. And so is there any cost here to the district with participating in the study or in this program?
So as I mentioned, my understanding is if there would be change orders, if we went through, so let's just say I'm throwing out a number, I don't know what the number is, this is hypothetical. If they wrote a grant for $400,000 and got $400,000, but the cost of materials went up, or there were change orders that had to happen throughout the process and then end up costing $425,000. My understanding from that meeting was that the school would then take on that $25,000 excess cost, so to speak.
Is there any kind of cap of as far as what the district would be responsible for?
That was not presented, no.
And is this something that we can further discuss, or is this something that needs board action today?
I don't think it necessarily needs board action. You know, if there's more information that the board wants, I could try and obtain that. If the board wants someone to come in and do a presentation maybe, you know, I'm happy to set that up.
Yeah, I think that's the intent, is to have a meeting with the board and the group to get questions answered and ideas passed around.
Well, that, and where did the initiative start at? Who's behind it? Who's going to maintain it? Who actually owns the property? Getting grant money is pretty easy, you know how, I mean, people do it all the time. But how, all the owners in it? I mean, Geneva Township is in it, Geneva Schools are in it, the City of Geneva is in it, Geneva City Council is in it. Who's all involved in it, and who's the driving force behind it? Is it our principal at Platt R. Spencer who says we need to have sidewalks? Are we driving it, or is it coming from someone else? Is it a parent that has the initiative? Where is the force coming for us to be involved with something like this?
So I think this is what I'll call an inheritance. I think that maybe some conversations had started prior to me that, you know, informally were passed along to me, and then certainly when City Council had reached out, I said, sure, I will, you know, get information, learn more about it, but again, that I wanted to get the input from the board to see, because ultimately.
But the trailer park on Austin Road is not in the city.
Yeah, I don't know that they know exactly, if they do, I don't know exactly where these sidewalks are going yet. If that's, you know, the route that we're going down, that's how it was presented, is that it could put sidewalks in, do some safety education with students in the classroom, is my understanding. My knowledge on this is about a 1-hour phone conference.
The only way you look at it, we all need more information.
That would be correct, sir.
Thank you.
Can I just say that I did have a conversation with the city council member that I believe you met with and he's in attendance if you would like for him to speak to any of these questions. I mean, that's up to you, Sally. He can maybe wait until the hearing of the public if you would like him to address it, but he
I
might
think
have
that's best.
some answers when the public's part.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can.
I might suggest, should we have a motion to table that? You aren't seeking any action from the board at this point. You're just,
No.
this is just
No,
information
I
for
just
our
wanted to
purposes.
inform.
I appreciate that.
Okay, other. I have an other. And this is kind of cool. This is the kind of thing I like to do. I received a letter from Akron Public Schools, and it concerns the Fair School Funding Plan. And it is to thank Kevin Lillie for the work that he has done in order to get the school funding plan organized and in print and to the legislature. And I won't read all of it because Kevin probably won't fit through the door after the meeting. But it said, we have had the distinct pleasure of working with Kevin since we all began the Fair School Funding work group on November 15th, 2017. Kevin has established himself as an outstanding educational leader, an impassioned representative of your school district, community, and advocate for all Ohio students. We want to commend and recognize Kevin for his outstanding contribution towards creating and advocating the Ohio's new state funding formula. We want to thank you for allowing Kevin to be part of the work group and for your Board of Education's support throughout this process. Please know that this took a Herculean effort to create, present, testify, and advocate to get this plan passed, and Kevin did an outstanding job of balancing the demands of serving the students and families in your school community while taking on this additional responsibility. Co-chairing the Transportation Committee has proven to be a vital component to what Ohio students and those who serve them need to be successful. We are truly blessed to be able to serve among such dedicated colleagues. So I am to present you with this challenge coin to thank you for the Fair School Funding Work Group. It means so much to so many young Ohio learners. And I did check, and unfortunately, there was no check involved. And I just want to add that I'm really glad that we have this many people here to see Kevin get this award, because I know from working with him for the past 6 years, it's an amazing job he does, and I'm glad he gets the public recognition.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay, is there any other?
I have some items. I just wanted to quickly report out on summer school. It sounds as it was productive. We had 65% in attendance at the elementaries and 127 credits earned at the high school. Also at the high school, they graduated 4 students during the first session, and hopefully 3 more will graduate through this session as well. So that was exciting. Enrollment numbers, looking at our enrollment for the fall, currently we seem to be at about 2,300 students, and the applications, I think, are still being processed and coming in, so that was good to see that number. I wanted to recognize the Millen High School, who have maintained the bronze level status for the 2020-2021 school year in regards to PBIS. ATEC, a huge shout out to ATEC. They were one of 10 schools in the state to receive a grant from America Makes. And from that, we obtained a free 3D printer and box of filament to go with that. So that is great for our students. America Makes is a focus on skills to advance, to fill advanced manufacturing jobs. And there will be additional opportunities for training throughout the year and assistance from ATEC on this. So again, a big thank you to ATEC for giving us one of the printers, 3D printers that they received from that grant. And then lastly, I wanted to mention also emergency connectivity funds. So these funds help schools provide home technology equipment to support learning, off-campus connectivity, tablets, laptops. It was $7.171 billion from the American Rescue Plan passed by Congress. We are requesting a total of $115,226.51. Again, a huge thank you to Mr. Burgard. I did about this much of the work, and he did about this much of the work. So he has been amazing in the few short weeks that I've known him. But just to give you an idea of what we have applied for, and I think we have a good chance of getting it, which is exciting. It's a prioritization scale, and we are in tier 3 of 12. So we're near the top, and obviously if there's over $7 billion with a B, I'm hopeful that we will get this. So we are looking to put hotspots on buses. So students who are on the bus, middle and high school, who will now have devices going home with them and are spending 45 minutes or more time on the bus on the ride to or from school, will have connectivity and access that if they wanted to take advantage of getting their homework done on their bus ride home, they can. We also applied to have the monthly fee for a year paid for those hotspots on the bus. We're looking to get approximately 400 Chromebooks with licenses for teachers and students. It will also pay for the installation of the hotspots on the buses. And then we currently, I was told, have about 50 hotspots that the school currently owns. And so almost $9,500 that we applied for would also pay for the monthly fee for about 38 of those 50 existing hotspots for a year. So again, it would be wonderful for the district if we get funded, and I'm very hopeful. So fingers crossed. That's all I have.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other? We'll now have the second hearing of the public, if there's anyone that would like to make a comment. And once again, name and address.
Drive, Geneva. I am said council person who applied for the Safe Routes to School program, school travel plan grant, okay? And so this is a grant. Safe Routes to School program is a federal program. It's run in states by the Departments of Transportation. So in this case, it's run by ODOT. It is for K through 8 schools. And so in order to apply for money, eventually later on, for infrastructure or non-infrastructure programs to make your community, your school community, more biking and walk friendly, you need to create a school travel plan. That school travel plan does not have any obligation with it other than to create the plan, and that's what we got a grant to do. That was with the previous administration. Superintendent Kujala wrote a letter of support. I did consult with the previous middle school principal and the principal at GPS about that, if there was value in doing that prior to the application being written. And so again, the grant was written and approved. We got that grant to build a school travel plan. Safe Routes to School want to say, how do we make our school community more bike and walk friendly so it's safe for kids to travel to school? ODOT creates a 2-mile radius map which shows the density of students that live around the school. In this case, we looked at the middle school and GPS because those are the 2 schools that have the highest density of housing around it. I have talked to Geneva on the Lake and Geneva Township. Geneva Township has assigned one of their township trustees to be a part of our committee. We have teachers who are excited from each of the school communities who are interested in participating, would love a board member who would want to participate as well. But the grant was awarded to create this school travel plan, and that is it. And so the idea is to look at the deficits and the opportunities around making it easier for kids to bike and walk to school. So the idea would be to create that plan and have it done by December so that after that time, an entity, whether that be the school board at that point, or the city at that point, or a collaboration at that point, can then go after monies to implement that plan. So there is no, so right now it's just the creation of the plan. Once you have the plan, you can do nothing with it. Or you can go after these ODOT monies, which provide 100% funding, except if there are overages, as the superintendent stated, for the implementation. So let's say it's fixing sidewalks, or maybe it's just crosswalk painting, or maybe it's putting new signs up, or maybe it's an educational program, or maybe it's funding for crossing guards. It could be any one of those things, but those will all be based on parent, community, your feedback, city feedback, township feedback in the creation. So there's no, it will be created with the vision and voice of all the parties at the table for the collaboration. And then after that, whichever party and I would assume that whatever party would be the school district or a city or a township, then they can apply for those dollars. And so I hope that provides a little bit more clarity on that the grant is awarded just for the creation of this plan. And we hope to get lots of parent feedback, staff feedback, and community feedback on how we can make the community around the middle school and GPS more bike and walk friendly and safe, so that parents with limited restrictions can have access for their children to walk and bike to school safely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kirsten Hansen, 103 Pepperidge Drive. Okay, I've got two things. If masks become mandatory in the future because of big numbers, whatever, is there money in the budget to pay for the disposable masks that the kids can be given by the school? I think that would help some of the people who have qualms about the masks and the filthiness that they get, and they get the bus. If somebody gets on the bus, is there a mask that the bus driver can give them for that bus ride so that the parents aren't burdened with that mask, giving it to the kids all day and worrying about how gross they get? Because, I had to send lots of masks, like I said before. And secondly, I'm an alumni of this school. 2010, I walked these halls. I've seen these faces for a long time. Mr. Dana, and I might have missed it whenever you were talking about it, but what was Mr. Kujala's hard decision?
I don't know if we want to address this or take up public comment here. I'm just indicating, what I was just trying to convey here is that I want all of us to be here, this time again next year. And I'm just, I'm just saying that was his hardest. It wasn't necessarily a decision, but it was the hardest time of what he faced here as being superintendent. So I was just relating to the fact that, we all thought it was going to be the Spire situation, but we were just, he had to deal with a number of issues, including COVID, but, the loss of a child here was.
I just don't know what decision was made.
So not necessarily a decision.
Well, you said decision multiple times, so we were under the assumption that something was decided, just like our lovely superintendent has had to make now.
I apologize, I misspoke, so I'm sorry.
Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Can I answer your question? Can I answer your question? Oh, okay, I'm sorry, ma'am. The answer to your question is yes, yes, and yes. So, yes, they're currently available for kids who would choose to wear them and maybe don't have them. In fact,
They're required. I can say, I'm not sending any, by something, because he was guilted sometimes whenever he forgot a mask, or, he was a kindergartner, poor guy, would drop him out of the car as he was getting out. And he came home sometimes really upset that he was scolded for not having a mask. And, the teachers at Court are amazing. Thank God I'm sending them there. They do kind of step up and give masks. But it's that if you don't have it, you're going to get in trouble. And he was a kindergartner. You can't put that on 5-year-olds to remember their mask every day. And if the school put into effect that they will provide the masks, I think that would, help with that.
Both of my kids lost privileges to the bus because they didn't have a mask. So I just want to make sure that doesn't happen in the future.
sure. So I can certainly speak to what happened in the past. I can only speak to moving forward. However, I did check with our Director of Transportation, and masks will be available should a student, because they are required on the buses, come to the bus and does not have one. Certainly we would prefer or like, and sometimes kids like the cloth ones over the ones that we're providing. But they will be on the buses available should someone come without one and need one. Should a student lose theirs, it gets dirty, what have you, we do have them in the district. I know that we in fact had this conversation today. The ESC of Ashtabula County has gotten a donation, and they reached out, and I received an email from them with sort of listing various things that they were, had donated, or I'm not sure where they got them exactly, if districts needed them. So I did ask, and I have a list that I obtained from our administrators that I'll be sending to the ESC to get additional items for the district. Mm-hmm.
And I'd just like to relate that there was one mother whose young son came home from school with his mask on, and his mom looked and said, "That wasn't the mask you left with this morning." And the kid said, "Well, yeah, I traded with Johnny because I liked his better." So there's more than one problem dealing with grade school mask wearers. Any other hearing of the public? Okay, before I say this next bit, I again want to thank you all for coming, and this is my personal invitation for you to come back. We don't always go this long, but sometimes we do, and you can pick up quite a bit of information here. So, I recommend that the board hold an executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
I'll move.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Mr. Dana?
Yes.
We will not be coming back. We will not be taking any action. So again, thank you for coming, and come on back.